You're live.
And we are back. It's August 26th still, 10:30 a.m., 10:32 a.m. Joint Information Technology Oversight Committee. And we now have both Commissioner Wanda Manoli and Secretary Denise Riley Hughes. We're going to be talking about IT modernization update. But first, since we have a bunch of new folks in the room, we'll go around and introduce ourselves. We'll start with Senator Brock.
I am Senator Randy Brock from Franklin and Northern Grand Isle.
Winnie Priestley, aren't you? Smilia.
David?
Hi, good morning. Senator David Weeks, representing Rutland County.
And I'm Representative Kathleen James from the Bennington 4 District.
And introduce yourselves. And actually, we have some other folks in the room. If you guys can introduce yourselves, then I'll go to the star.
Hi, I'm Cole Barney, Legislative and Communications Manager with BGS.
I'm John Kelly, the Chief of Staff at ADS.
Is Gavin still here?
Lisa Bobbin, JFO IT Consultant.
Okay, so Commissioner Manoli, Secretary.
Good morning, I'm Wanda Manoli. I'm the Commissioner of Buildings and General Services.
Good morning, I'm Denise Riley Hughes, the Secretary of the Agency of Digital Services and State Chief Information Officer.
What we have on the agenda is specifically Vermont buys or VT buys. So tell us what you know about that. And we're going to interrupt and ask questions unless you rather we wait until the end. So take it away.
So, I mean, I'll talk to it. So VT buys is under the, we work in partnership, but it is the system now of record for procurement. And for those of you that don't know, state purchasing sits under buildings and general services. Many people think that all we do is build buildings and clean them, but we actually have under my department oversight of all bidding, all contracting, commodities and building contracts. So, we put the bids out and work with agencies on salt. We also do buildings. So I think that's where we have to really start and then we think about what the system is. The system for VT buys is a statewide portal for procurement. And it was a vision that started many years ago. I'm going to say that the state has been working on this. And I'm going to use simple things like one stop, right? And we can talk about it. It was going to be rolled out before COVID. And then COVID hit. And then they restarted and tried to bring some life back to it. And then we had floods. And BGS was really impacted, as you can well imagine, for 2 years of flooding and the work that they do. So there's been pauses. And I think that's why it's kind of been quiet. You haven't heard a lot about it. And then last year, we were ready to, we've made this investment, we've done this work, we've worked with our agencies, we've been working with our suppliers, and we need to move it forward. So the system is procurement from beginning to end. And where it starts is, so first of all, everything was paper-based prior to going live with this system. If you did a contract, you had to have a wet signature. If you wanted to know how to bid or what was available to bid on in the state of Vermont, you had to go into a system that is part of ACCD and you have to look. You as someone doing business with Vermont had to go in and search to see if there were business opportunities for you. And then and then as a state, if you're a contractor, and I'm just giving you examples, you would have to look and say, okay, I'm going to bid on this job for A&R and I'm going to bid on this job for BGS. We all required you as a business in Vermont to give us the same information. And it was never stored anyplace. So insurance documents, W-2 forms, whatever they were. So what the system's done is we've brought all of that into the system so it's there for the business. And then to get paid, and I'm jumping through really fast, everyone, to get paid, you had to submit a paper invoice. And we would move down the line and it would get stamped and it would get signed or it would get rejected. And it could take up to, 30 days plus to pay. The system has streamlined all of that. And, so the suppliers have registered, they have created their own portal. They choose the types of bids or commodities that they want to get information on. And then the system communicates with them that those opportunities are there. And then once you bid on it and you get awarded the contract or the service agreement or whatever it is, the system moves everything through. We document, we have on file your insurance documents, your tax documents, everything is signed. The business can submit their invoices through this. The state, can approve and it goes directly to Vision. Right now, we're seeing a 7-day turnaround on the ones that are fully utilizing the system and payment, which is data as of last Friday, which I think is pretty good. You ready to ask a question?
Well, you mentioned it goes to Vision, which
Is our financial
pricked up my
record?
ears, which Vision is the financial system that's.
That's right.
That's,
And Senator, that's really important because we weren't connected with that, right? We were
Yeah,
doing
okay.
it over here. I mean, we've made every attempt and you all know about systems. The purpose is efficiency. The purpose is mapping out the systems and aligning them and trying to make them work. Is everything perfect? Absolutely not.
can we see this, like
Um,
right now? Can we put it up on the screen?
this,
Is that possible?
The landing page.
I don't have, I mean, maybe I don't have it.
Yeah, sorry, we didn't warn you about it beforehand, so.
We
Might-
can
might-
get somebody to get done,
Okay.
both from the supplier side and from a state user side.
Yeah, I think that, I think that why not see it,
Yeah.
right?
But sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's okay. I'm just talking. So I think I'm just kind of wanting to share the story.
If I can add too, I
Of
think that
course.
we're one of the few states that didn't have e-procurement, that we were doing these on paper. So when you look at
Yes.
data integrity and procurement integrity, this now adds some meat to that for us, more than what we
That's-
had on the paper side.
That's right.
Definitely shortened the processes, and like you said, when we rolled it out, we needed to roll out a service because this had been going on pre-creation of ADS. As far as the original planning around this, then ADS came around, and I think that this was launched in 2019 temporarily until all of a sudden the pandemic happened. It was paused because of all the priorities that the state had. E-procurement was not one of them. So we did have the opportunity to join to make a decision, either walk away or move forward. And being one of the only states still doing things on paper, it made a lot of sense to move forward with a lot of guardrails. And so those two components that Commissioner Nolly is talking about is procure to pay and source to contract. And so those two different focus areas are ones that, as we start talking about the business process that this has to be informed by, those are where we're building those ties together. So the timing, being able to hold to that it was less than a year. They were given 9 months to go live with a workable, usable system. And anything that was a desire or enhancement after that, the decision had to be made. Do we include this in there or do we walk away? And if we sat there and included every little whim, every little idea that wanted to come in, we would never have ever gone live. So I know that we've got a list of what we're considering to be phase 2.
Yep.
And determining the value, the impact, the benefit, both from the almost 10,000 suppliers that you have in this country today that do business with the state and every single department and agency using it. The other piece is the opportunity to now look at what the state has done through Office of Contracting,
Yes.
Procurement and Contracting to extend what the state's doing from those master agreements and now create some enablement at the municipal level. We'd love to see that come out of phase 2. because there's a lot of benefit to negotiated terms that the state has that local municipalities could benefit from. And also some of the pricing contracts that your department spends so much time negotiating too. So there is definitely future envisioning happening here with the system. But we've got to pace ourselves and we've got to make sure that it makes sense and that there's value and that.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, you know, and I'm just saying to the committee, you know, joining last October and looking at what the whole system can do and how we can implement it. To the secretary's point, what is feasible, what gets us our best plan in rolling this out? Because trying to wait to do everything was just more delay. You know, and we really needed to set up our organization, get our team ready. We have a call center, we have an online service, you know, we're working with agencies, departments, with suppliers all of the time. But to be able to take the key elements of the system and implement that and know that there are other opportunities within the system and what does that role, that's, you know, that's where we're moving to. And, you know, but I'm letting my staff breathe, to be absolutely honest with you. I think the secretary may be too. We're in a good place. We're getting good data. You know, we're identifying what are the next steps and what do we want to do. One of the things I'll tell you, you probably all hear about workflow, right? You take these systems and you map out what the current workflow is, and then you use the system to gain efficiencies. We did apparently workflowing back in 2018. And it's one of the things now that we've gone live that we know we need to tweak because things have changed and you know, but it's just normal business. I think it's normal. This is how we manage, you know, some of these projects. You're always going to be modifying and tweaking it. You know, but I just to the point, if I could, so as of August 25th, we had almost 10,000 suppliers registered. Well, some are new. So we brought everyone who had done business with us into the system where we could. So these are Vermont businesses or outside businesses, but almost 10,000 of those. As of the 25th, we had 181 contracts signed and executed. We never used to get this data. We would manually have to go through and just capture it. But I think this is one of the things that I'm just looking at my data, which I think is so impressive because I love data. We have issued $96 million in purchase orders since we've gone live.
Oh. And just yeah.
Yes, and we have, you know, and I'm not gonna go through all of the data, but I know as we move forward and we start looking at the system and you wanna know, especially when you come back, we've processed 24 million in invoices since we've gone live. We didn't have that information before. I've worked really closely with the suppliers, we've worked really closely with the agencies. It wasn't smooth for everyone. But for the most part, we got through it. Businesses are starting to get very used to it. They like having a portal where they can go in and manage, and I call it a portal. Denise may call it something else. E-procurement.
BT guys.
It must be the DMV days of my portal.
It's a portal?
It's a portal, but it you know, so.
And I saw KPMG on your report. Is that the provider?
They're the implementation
Okay.
partner. Yes.
And who was the one that actually, I don't know the terminology, actually put it together, brought to go live? Is KPMG the entire time?
KPMG has been the partner on contract with the state. The product, there's a platform that this is built on, that is a different company name.
Okay.
It is built on a product called a Value App. We're working with 4 other states who are using it too.
Okay. And Value was the company?
The Value is the product, yeah,
Okay. What's the company's name?
Value App.
Okay, so it's the
Same,
Okay.
yeah.
Everyone read about, how VT buys went online and then didn't work. So tell us about
Well, it
that.
didn't go online. And
Yeah, tell
it
us
didn't
about what
happen.
we read because
So what you read.
I'm familiar with, well, I won't say what I was about to say, but
If you're okay with me.
Oh, you know, the police secretary.
In that last mile, that last stretch, when you have a go live date set and each day that progresses up to that point, you have this all hands-on approach. And this is very similar to these all project management spaces. When you start inching past go live, and that's a decision that we made to say, hold on 1 second, if this is the experience that this is gonna give to suppliers and users, but this needs to be fixed before we go live. So as you start identifying things as folks are doing that user acceptance testing in the system, we identify areas that are no-goes for us. We got to that point a couple weeks past go live, which also meant that prior to go live, we had to make developer changes in Vision that were one-way changes.
What does that mean? Excuse me.
Once you make the
What's
change,
a one-way change?
once you make the change, you're not going back. You're not undoing the change. You can undo it, but it's gonna be the same level of effort to undevelop the changes that you made. And this is the ability for the systems to be able to talk to each other. When we were a couple weeks past go live, the pressures that put on the business offices and the suppliers that we work with and the risk to not paying them was not worth it. So we have two options in those scenarios. You always have a plan A, plan B, plan C. Plan A is go live. Plan B is what's your rollback. Plan C is a little combination of the both. So our plan B was, there's an opportunity to always roll back. What's that look like? When we had a story go live, it was at 5% of the story, which the reality was making sure that the team could pause because they weren't doing any of the remediation in those items that were blocking us to go live. And they needed to make sure that we could document the rollback plan. And it took them a couple of days to do that because we identified that, wait a second, this is going to take some time to do. So do we roll it back and have it take a couple weeks, or do we give a couple more weeks and risk reaching 30-day payment terms? That wasn't an option. So again, this is in the heat of the moment. These are the decisions that we have to make. And so the option was take a couple of state employees off of sitting in the meetings to say, can you resolve this? Can't you resolve it? Can you test it? Can't you test it? And say, let's focus on what does rollback look like? And the beauty is that over that weekend, the stars aligned. And I would say 80% of those issues were resolved, and we ended up being able to go live that following Friday. So what was projected to be a potential month to 2 month delay, which would force us into plan B, ended up being a week, and we ended up going live. So it was, I'm sure you can appreciate, a lot of feelings get put in the way, and you probably read feelings rather than facts.
No, and I think it's really important though, in the environment that the secretary was just talking about, best practices really do come into it, and we do pre-testing. And we were in a pre-testing mode where this is when these things come up. And this is where these things come up. And that's where you haven't gone live because you have to do the evaluation that she's talking about. So for us, while I understand there was a report and we, and there was concerns, for us, we were in our norm.
Yeah.
We were in our structure of this makes sense, this is how we move projects forward, this is our normal business. And it aligned.
So just to make sure that I understand, so it wasn't in use yet.
No.
And then you
Right.
saw problems after what had been a scheduled go live date. There was some sort of report and presumably VT Digger saying that you couldn't do it.
It was an email that somebody.
And the problems that you identified had to do with the vision system, a completely different system?
No, well, it had to do with the project. The issues were bugs.
In the project itself.
In the system itself, it was just, configuration changes and tweaks that they had to make or they didn't foresee as they were building the workflow. These are very standard.
And in pre-testing, pre-production is because what we do in pre-production is we actually use actual contracts or payments and we test the system.
Right.
And through that testing, that's where these items came up. And then you create a list and you evaluate how's that going to impact your rollout date. So I just want to say with confidence, it was a normal part of the process. Was our biggest concern the one that the secretary brought up, which was aligning to the payment? Absolutely, but there were other little ones, but the team, and this is where we have to give our state employees and the team credit. I mean, they worked every weekend. They worked diligently to figure this out and we were able to do it.
Yeah, and a question, just so it sounds like the 80% went smoothly, but then there was 20% that maybe didn't. And were any of the 20% one-way customizations that are then going, I guess I'm wondering like how stable, if those are customizations, how stable are those customizations when it comes to upgrades in the future? And will there have to be money that's spent on these like customized, what I would software like mandated, it feels like, so.
This system is named in contract as a software as a service solution.
Yep.
So there are updates and upgrades that happen over time. None of the customizations that are configured in, from what we've been told, break in the process. It's a matter of making sure that we are configuring and that we have an option to take advantage of new features. We have an opportunity not to take advantage of those new features.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious, like down the line, do you see these customizations getting in the way of being able to go along with upgrades that other customers are getting? Like, will there be added costs to continuously trying to have customizations?
There will be added costs because I think that there's going to be continued effort to make additional enhancements and improvements in the system. At least I think that's the hope of the team. So now adding in things that it doesn't include, like the purchase cards, the P cards. So if you have a state card, those procurements aren't included in there right now. We'd like to add those in there. So as a realist, every system would require some of that touch.
Sure.
Required. The important thing is right now is making sure that our technical support plan and our business support plan are modeled to account for those changes.
Right.
And that where we can bring those resources in internally to the state as opposed to always outsourcing, that could also mitigate those future cost impacts.
I gather from the discussion that the issues with the system were discovered by the people who are part of the team to do that. Is there any independent review, or at what point is there independent review that might be outside of the scope of the team working on the project?
So there was an independent review that was done prior to your time and my time. We have discussed what a post-mortem assessment would be, but we're not at post-mortem yet. They're still in that final stage post-go live. I think that the projection date that we have is Friday, actually of this week, where they would consider that implementation project to be complete. And so I would have a better answer for you once I can confirm it.
At that point, what, if anything, by way of independent review might be done?
So our.
And it may be nothing. I'm just.
Oh, no,
what your
there's
process
definitely not
is.
nothing. There is the current independent review process, the criteria that's covered doesn't look at it from a postmortem standpoint. And so we can take modifications to that. I will tell you one of the reasons why we really focused hard on some of those configurations is we do a security vulnerability test before go live. And when we identify things that, although a vendor might be comfortable accepting the risk on, state is not willing to accept the risk on. So that also creates some additional work effort that holds up go live. So we've done that analysis. And after we had the vulnerability report, we did the review, we did a post vulnerability report to make sure that the changes that were made satisfy our requirements.
Now, is that a standard process with all major projects? that there is an effective independent vulnerability review done.
Yes.
And as far as the state's independent auditors, do they have any role to play at some point on an annual basis of looking at your systems, and particularly this one, doing executed one that has high dollar value issues? Potential.
What I would say is each project is different. We don't have it built into process for the contract with them, that we have them coming back at go live for an additional cost. But that is something that with some of the bigger systems, we've got IDB partners that we engage with on the AHS side, so taking a similar approach to that. We also do the project closeout reporting as well, which does give some of that detail that an independent partner would provide. But I think it's something that as we look at our maturity and what we're doing, and also the cost that it takes at a project level, when you look at something that was, 9 years in the making and 9 months in the real hard effort, that wasn't what they were planning back then.
I'm just wondering, and maybe this is for both of you, and I'm also just not sure as far as the AI council and like what its role comes into play for AI, the procurement of AI software solutions. I know a lot of states have adopted pretty strict guardrails for state governments when it's coming to those systems in particular. I was just curious, like, are you working together on that, or is the AI council doing recommendations, or what's the kind of process for this for VTBIs?
So VTBIS isn't an AI system.
No, but it handles all the procurement stuff, right? So
It's where we'll workflow. You do the business side first.
right, okay, so I guess.
I'm trying to correlate the ask around the AI council and VTBIS.
This.
It just sounded, so VTBIS has nothing to do with the procurement of software solutions for the state of Vermont? Like, that's what I'm asking about.
So it is not capturing that information because that's done through our system.
Okay, so it's only ADS,
VTBIS
okay.
is built based on, we have an internal process internally that we use on
Okay.
our contract review. We also have from our contract terms, there are attachments that include those terms around the use of the identification of the quality that is not handled the transaction of the procurement side.
Okay, so I guess
It's handled at the contract.
continuing my question more, maybe it doesn't fall under VTBIS, but is ADS working on that, I guess? I'm just curious about for future agenda items. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm super clear. So before this system would be offering AI software for procurement, what would happen?
The same thing that it does now. So all IT procurement is managed through ADS. And we have our internal checks and balances and controls in place when it comes to that procurement. As far as how that gets built into the VTBI system, we don't have an ADS checkbox that exists today yet in VTBIs to specifically identify that this is tech and this is not tech, but there are workflows that will send that information up to my team. So there's still some manual processes that have to happen. Everything's not just automated. It's a matter of making sure that the workflow can send it to the right people. But that would be the future phase 2 piece if we wanted to automate that or track that from a reporting standpoint.
So let me see if I can ask this really clearly. So is it possible that we would offer for procurement an AI software solution that you would not be aware
This
of?
isn't a catalog. VTBIS isn't a catalog. It's just a mechanism to process the contracts and invoicing. So it's doing business workflow on behalf of the users in the state. It is not a catalog of SKUs that you can buy.
I'm glad I'm asking this because it's starting to get clearer, but I would like it to be super clear. So it's not a catalog. So how does something, maybe we could just talk about how something comes to be to go to the Vermont Buyers
Would it
Association.
be okay if I suggest that when we schedule the demo, that we can actually use that as one of the scenarios that we walk through to show you?
That would be good, because
An AI
we're,
software solution?
well, we're past time on this right now, but we're gonna have you back probably every meeting. So we'll be able to follow up with that for another agenda item. But I specifically, I think I understand that essentially someone in state government could buy AI software through this and probably.
Yeah, that's my question.
And this thing itself wouldn't notice.
So you don't buy through VT buys, you bid and then you bid.
Yeah. But VT buys doesn't actually screen anything.
Bid.
Right, you,
But we'll, I
Not
guess
the
we'll,
way that you're describing
I
it,
guess we'll,
yeah.
I guess we'll see what.
It's not
the demo-
Amazon.
Yeah,
right.
okay, great. All right, well, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Everyone
Just a-
enjoy the rest of your summer.
Oh, Kath.
Sorry, just a quick question. And I'm sorry if I missed this at the beginning. Was there written testimony that you provided today or could provide?
They did not, Kath. We're gonna be focusing on that on the future invitations.
Great.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
You too.
Feel better?
Yeah, as soon as I
Director
get outside, I'll be able to.
Come on up.
We did send you a copy of this one pager just now. So virtually. A quick summary.
You got Brenda?
Yes.
Here, before we begin, I want to disclose that I am a member of the Vermont.
Fair enough. Thank you. And well, Director Hallquist is here. We'll quickly introduce ourselves. I'm Senator Rob Plunkett, Bennington District. I'm Chair of the committee. And you've been for many years.
Yes, how many years? Yes.
Everybody please like.
Also, Laura Spilia with
Yes, we know each other.
Senator Weeks and Representative James are on these. So I'm going to call it WebEx because that's the court system so far, but we're switching. So we're here to hear about an update on the BEAD awards.
Yeah, so I do have some good news. At 9 o'clock this morning, culmination of 3 years of efforts, we met with the NTIA, who approved of us to move forward. And it really was the culmination of 3 years. But moving forward, I'll explain as I in the presentation, doesn't mean they totally agree with our plan. I feel like we're in kind of a used car sale negotiation here with the federal government, which maybe that's always the case. I don't know. But anyway, I'll give you a status of where we are and what the plan is. If you look at where we were when the VCBB was established, about 25% of Vermont addresses had access to fiber. Today, 2/3 do. And with the BEAD plan, we will get to 97% of the addresses will be addressed with fiber. Another 2.5% would be what's called hybrid fiber cable, and then we get to the satellite issue, which I'll talk about in a moment. If you look at the BEAD program today, it addresses the remaining 15,500 addresses in the state. In other words, we're looking at the last 5% now. And of course, like anything else, the last 5% is the hardest. The current plan will serve most of that with fiber. However, let's talk about the BEAD program and how it started and where we are today. The BEAD program was originally designed as an infrastructure program. So we've been proceeding all along, working many hard years to develop a proposal that addressed it as an infrastructure program with a fiber optic preference. And my statement continues to be, and I've said this probably for at least a decade, that if it's not fiber, it's not broadband. And I'm willing to peel that apart for you. The current administration is pushing as much as they can to satellite. Now, we've been pretty successful dodging that bullet. You know, if you look at what there are addresses that are extremely expensive to serve. So it makes sense to provide satellite as an option. However, we have a unique problem in Vermont. It's called tree canopy and terrain. You know, the terrain, if you look at satellite images of some of these remaining addresses to serve, there's a heavy tree canopy on those. And that interferes and often stops the ability to use satellite. Satellite also fails during bad weather. So we've really done some really deep engineering analysis of what satellite can do and what it cannot do. It doesn't have the capacity to meet future requirements because it uses radio frequency to communicate with satellites, and radio frequency is limited. Now, we've said, you know, you may have heard over the years this discussion around, well, these wireless providers can provide for Vermont. But we knew, you know, right from day one that wireless can't meet the needs. But we opened up this bid entirely and we didn't get any wireless applications because they knew they couldn't meet the specification. And I challenge the satellite is the same, although this current administration is trying to push as much as they can to satellite. Now, today's negotiation didn't feel too bad. If I talk about the numbers, we originally, in our original plan, had 622 highly expensive satellite locations. And if you think about 315,000, what we call broadband serviceable locations, and the rest of the world knows as residential addresses, 315,000 homes in Vermont. Having only 622 go to satellite is not necessarily a bad thing. And we're including off-grid, by the way, when I have this discussion. That was our first proposal. And that would have got to about 99, that would have only represented less than 0.2% of the addresses by satellite. With that plan would have cost $189 million. New administration comes along and says, we want to return more money to the taxpayers. Okay, let's do another deep dive with all of the applicants. And that number was driven from 189 million to 121 million. Significant savings. You're talking about 30% savings. And we only went from 622 satellite locations to 744. So for 120 satellite locations gaining, 60, 70 million, I think that's seems to make sense. But when I talk about infrastructure, renting space on a satellite does not build infrastructure. So we have a wonderful opportunity, and many of us have been working for a long time on this to get to this fiber optic infrastructure. Feeling somewhat optimistic after our negotiation this morning, but the NTI has about 90 days of what they call curing, where they're going to come back to us and push us to do more satellite. We're going to continue to stick to the physics and the science and talk about where it works and where it doesn't work. But, I'm not making any predictions with this current administration.
Yeah, I guess I would, maybe you're going here. I'm curious, like any issues that you see coming up or that have come up in other states as far as satellite awards go.
Well, some of the this is a very interesting question, right? If you look at I'll use South Carolina, for example. South Carolina awarded 80% of their addresses to satellite, but their plan was rejected because too much went to satellite. So it's not. This isn't based on any physics or science. It's based on some kind of negotiation that I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But we'll continue to negotiate in good faith. So other states have I call it the lazy way out. Just default it to satellite. That's because if you default to satellite, you don't have to do all this engineering analysis. But we've done the hard work, and I'm very proud of the work we've done. We've got one person in our staff who looks at every single address.
I guess along those lines, do you foresee any issues legally with getting wrapped up in anything satellite wise when it comes to certain providers, like one that we all know well?
Yes, we've had a couple of meetings. I'll just be public with the name. We've had a couple of meetings with Starlink. when we have those meetings, it's only their attorney that's speaking. And it does feel like we're being bullied. And they've challenged, they've sent letters to other states challenging, they are going to, they are threatening lawsuit.
Right.
But I'd say bring it on. Because we're pretty solid.
Just because I can't help myself, I do want to put on the record that Starlink in the past has refused to testify on the record to the Vermont legislature in terms of setting up the VCBB, in terms of our grant programs, et cetera.
And they have done freedom of information requests, but we're pretty confident that everything we do, we feel public about it anyway, so.
Do you have any other questions? And you brought someone with you that we didn't introduce who's on Zoom.
Oh, yeah, we have two people on Zoom, Heron Herzog, who's our public outreach person,
Okay.
communication person, and Tony Litherow, who's our general counsel.
Okay, so you brought your lawyer, but you did the talk.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes. Yeah, Tony, did I say anything wrong?
No, you're fine.
I do have a question regarding fiber. Where you will have fiber laid, the fiber belongs to some particular entity and vendor, and there typically is not any duplicate fiber, is there?
With what, I'm gonna address I'll start with what we'll call open access. We don't have open access fiber. Open access means we have plenty of excess fiber. We hang, if you're gonna hang, 144 fibers, you might as well hang 288 because the incremental cost of fiber is minimal compared. So we have plenty of dark fiber around the state. The issue around we are awarding these grants to individual ISPs, whether they be communication union districts or some of the other providers, Comcast, Etel, Consolidated. So your question it relates to can other people get on that fiber? Well, they can, but the business case is so bad that nobody would do it.
Well, I guess one of my concerns is the lack of competition for the space. And when you get a provider that is bad, and the definition of bad depends on your perspective and what concerns you, you really don't have any choice, do you?
Well, this is where the Vermont Community Broadband Board comes in. We, as part of our grant agreements, have set a set of specifications and performance monitoring to ensure that they meet those requirements. So we've built a platform using Ookla data, and we can monitor in real time how these providers are doing. And our board has required us to put a set of performance requirements in place, which will ensure that the performance is there. Now, if they default on the performance, we have the option to pull that back and find another provider.
Now, is that operable right now? Is it operable?
I'm not sure what you mean.
The process of examining how a performer is
Yes.
delivering.
Yes, it is
And
operable.
doing something about a performer who doesn't deliver.
Yeah, our Ookla reporting system is up and it's available on, I believe it's available. Erin, is it available on the website? Yep.
We are still working on it, but we're going to make that available very soon, and we'll be having a campaign to let everybody know about it. It's going to be something exciting. We'll be looking forward to bringing to everyone.
Thank you.
Now, so you don't have any instances right now where you have found some provider in default of standard?
No. When we'll talk about the technology, because this is why I repeat the mantra all the time that if it's not fiber, it's not broadband.
Mm-hmm.
Fiber is a fused connection, meaning the glass is fused together throughout the entire network.
Mm-hmm.
versus cable, for example, that has these interconnects that tear down over time. So part of our approval of payment of the grant, we do an inspection of the system, and most importantly, we require them to provide us with what's called the optical domain reflectivity tests, which once you get light all the way to the end of the last user on the network, that thing stays there pretty much forever. You know, when I was a CEO of Vermont Electric Co-op, we were using fiber that was built in the 70s that had not degraded because it's glass. You know, it's a glass connection to the end. So you're going to get the performance. Now, that's the fiber itself. The real challenge becomes in the electronics, which are relatively simple to upgrade. And that's where we're going to run into problems. We haven't seen problems yet, but of course, this network is newly built. What happens is you design your interface for what you believe is the maximum usage, you know, what they call the burst rate. But of course, as you add users, or, you know, you start getting more data requirements such as AI, that is going to be something we have to pay close attention to.
Do you see issues with the legacy providers right now in terms of their switch from cable to fiber and a timetable for doing that?
Well, what I'm giving you here is the timetable. We are going to do that.
That's your expectation?
Yeah. The other thing that's happening nationwide is fiber is the least expensive in terms of infrastructure and significantly least expensive in terms of operating maintenance costs. So you're seeing all the copper providers migrate to fiber.
What is the timetable for the legislature to find out the details of the awards?
We will be posting it on Thursday.
Is that like we'll get a notice before it goes publicly, or
That's when we do a public notice, and we will notify at the same time.
Preliminary one.
Yes, we're going to announce what we've determined, and then, you know, the challenge now will be to keep it the same. The NTA has 90 days to require us to make changes to that. Thank you.
Any other questions from anybody? Thank you, Director Humphries. That was informative for me, especially. This is a brand new thing. Wonderful. All right, and I think for now, we'll take a 5-minute break and then come back for committee discussion on where we're going forward.